The disbandment of Nigerian police unit SARS, is it a knee-jerk reaction or a good decision? Priscilla.
The disbandment of SARS, it was absolutely a knee-jerk reaction. It was what the Nigerian government are good at doing, which is to think that they can try and deal with the issue. Let me try and quote this former senator well. The former senator said that the Nigerian government will deal with some issues with insecticides and he will use deodorant for Boko Haram, for instance. So effective. So they're not. They thought if we just tell them that we've disbanded, they would go home. But you see, as you rightly said, Jones, this whole SARS situation has been brewing for so many years. The Nigerian youth have been, hashtagging and trending end SARS in 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016. SARS was banned in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 29. Every year they're banning SARS. They're doing nothing. So the people were, what is so amazing about what we're seeing now, I personally don't think that this whole idea, this whole protest is just about banning SARS. I think it's a beginning of the people taking back their sovereignty. And I believe that it is the first steps in a long journey, that journey of, if you like, cleansing the nation, changing the way that they're being governed. I've always said that, until the Nigerian people tell their government how they want to be governed, all of the things that we see happen in Nigeria will continue. The corruption will continue. As somebody said the other day, corruption is the currency, is the legal tender. It's not the naira, it's corruption. The corruption that we see, the brutality that we see, the lack of protection of human rights being taken seriously, for instance, all of those things, until the people rise up and say, we have had enough, the change will never come. And this is where we're at. So the government thought we would just tell them, we've disbanded SARS, and then they would go home. But then they disbanded SARS, and then they brought forward the squad that you spoke about. That squad was already in existence. The special weapons and tactics squad, that was SWAT, that was already in existence. They just now decided to bring that forward. But here's the problem. It's not enough to end SARS or to end SWAT, because the problem that we have is endemic. These police officers are being paid something like 50,000 naira. 50,000 naira in today's Nigeria is what? 20 or so, no, not 20 pounds. It's about 600 to £1 now at the moment today, I was told. So when we do the maths, about £100, I think. Well, anyway, so imagine 50,000 naira, right? It's £100 is what somebody's earning a month. You've got family to feed. A bag of rice is costing like 30 odd thousand. So if you have family, you've got children to look after, and these salaries don't always come regularly. It's bad enough that they're small, but they don't come on time. Now, these same people are expected to be out there in the sun and to be protecting the nation, and this is what they earn. You see, in order for them to be able to survive, they feel they need to be able to, they get involved in all of these, activities. Mm-hmm. They've, gotten to the point now where they've become the armed robbers, because they are holding guns on a daily basis and literally holding them to the heads. And they're picking on the younger ones because they're picking on the younger ones more. They pick on you if you're driving a good car. They pick on you if you have dreadlocks. They pick on you if you're carrying a decent phone. They pick on you if you're carrying 2 or 3 phones. They pick on you if they just, they think you look the part. They would just simply pick on you. There have been reports of people being taken to cash points and being made to withdraw monies and give to these guys, and they would just throw them in cells. It's bad enough they do that, but they go the extra mile of killing. And I think what was worse about the young man you mentioned that was killed was that the officer actually said, "I have killed your son, and nobody's going to do anything about it." How do you tell parents that? And that was the trigger point that set everybody out on the street. And what is interesting is that these young people have come out on the street. Government, usually what happens is that you have the National Labor Congress and you have unions. When you have a strike in Nigeria, they would normally be the ones that would say, okay, we're going on strike, so they'll be out on the street protesting. And usually the government will call in their leaders. After a conversation, the strike will be called off. So those ones will literally threaten a protest, and then they'll have a conversation. Oh, no, we're not protesting tomorrow. I'll leave the rest to you to imagine what took place there. But in this situation with these young people, there is no clear leader. And they started trending the hashtag. You've got Jack, who owns Twitter, tweeting. You've got Ice Cube tweeting. You've got the celebrities that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Everybody is just sending it out. And these young people on Twitter, especially, you would just see somebody says, we're going out to protest in this state. We have 36 states in Nigeria. This is happening mostly down south.
Yeah.
People up north tend not to get involved in all of these things. So there's something else I mentioned in a moment. So this is happening down south, and these young people are just saying, we're going out to protest in the states, and they're doing it. Because there's no clear leadership, it's made it difficult for the government to be able to do the usual, have a meeting, have a conversation, and then it's over.
When you say clear leadership, as in somebody who is at the forefront of the protest.
There isn't
Yeah.
one person solely at the forefront. Yeah. In every state, they're springing up.
Yeah.
They're springing up everywhere. What is their demand? We want to end SARS. We want you to pay the police officers better. We want you to let the police officers who have killed, let them pay for their crime. We want this, we want that, which is great. But I think that they need to have better ask beyond that, because yes, pay the police officers better, but then we can't also have our politicians who are earning more than everybody else on the face of the planet, earning more money than other politicians around the world. They get money for newspapers. They get money for a new house when the year starts. Every year they get given money for furniture. They get given money for food. They get given money for those who are serving them. They have bought new cars, or they're giving money for cars. It's ridiculous. And this huge amount of money, if we were to reduce it, we may be able to pay the police officers better. So let me explain. The police officers are one group of people that are working, that are employed by the government, if you like. We've got doctors that are going through the same thing. So you go to the hospital, most doctors will rather set up their private clinic. When you come to the hospital, they'll say there's no bed, there's no this, but then they'll have availability in their private clinic. So this is how the corruption is happening. You've got the same thing with teachers. So teachers, students are not passing exams. Parents are paying for their kids to just, run through, so that, they don't have to, the strain of, and this is for some, not for every, but it's happening. So you've got that whole situation happening in the system. So when you put these groups of people, these areas of society together, and this is happening, and it's happening amongst the police, the ordinary man on the street is being extorted every single day, in every breath of life. He or she is doing the same, is having to do the same thing to survive. It can no longer continue. So it's a bigger picture than just ending SARS. Mm-hmm. Ending SARS is just, for me, the catapulting, the springboard to making things better in that country. There's just so much to it.
Before Julius comes in, just one more, Priscilla. So I just wanted to know, since SARS was formed, how effective have they been?
I think initially they were very effective. Initially, they weren't visible on the streets like we're seeing today. They actually just went ahead, because the SARS is the special anti-robbery squad. Yeah. So they would go out for serious robbery. They will investigate it and catch the culprits and deal with them. But what we have today, for instance, is that you will see SARS members dressed in their uniforms, but they're providing security also for politicians. They're providing security for those that can pay, and so they're taken away from the jobs of investigating robberies because they're not being well paid. They're out on the streets. They will set up roadblocks on roads so that they can extort. So they're not as effective because they're not even investigating some of the crimes. To make matters worse, some of the crimes that are happening, you will find that some members of SARS are behind it. So, they've turned into the criminals. They're setting up the situation. So it's a really vile circle, to be honest with you. And it does need attention. It needs to be resolved. And, if this is what it means, then congratulations. I haven't said that. I am so proud. I am so proud and so happy to see that the Nigerian youth are finally taking destiny into their hands and saying, no, we are not doing this. We want to see these changes effected. It's not the one you're going to tell us and then we all go home and sleep. By the time we wake up tomorrow, you're doing what you like. No, we're here until we see it effected. And I must applaud all of them for that. And I thank the world for supporting them and also cheering them on.
And
And
and Julius, and Julius, there's one politician. I'm actually still in his quote. He said, "When the people rise up, the government has to listen." Is this
Well,
what
that's
you
very
see?
true because,
Yeah,
yeah, as I think Priscilla explained, these protests were not in one place. It was in Abuja and also different other cities, and also in London, precisely last Sunday, right? And
everywhere, US, Europe.
when you look at, I mean, the last time I was in Nigeria, Lagos, the last general election, and I walked on the street and I saw these flyers of all of them old people, no young person and all. And I challenged one young Nigerian. I'm like, why is it the case that it's all the time old people who fight for these posts? It was a question of money, having the money. You have to have the money so that you can vie for any elective post. And also, there's that hierarchical, paternalistic kind of setup that doesn't allow younger people that much. But so for me, I'm like, it's good to see young people now waking up saying, it's not status quo as usual. Things have to change. And yes, to respond into also make my contribution on these issues about SARS, what caught my attention was what the police officer was saying. For example, the word SWAT, Special Weapons and Tactics team, it makes them sound like they're just supposed to deal with weapons, right? Come
yeah,
up with new strategies, new tactics. Connotation of that word, that's what it comes across. But therefore, if those people are going to deal with people like the police do, you need to ask yourself, are they trained enough? What also caught my attention in the same was what the chief, police chief, Mr. Hadam, was talking about. He's saying that every SWAT member, they will be subjected to they will undergo a psychological and medical examination before further training and deployment. So I had a very influential man once in Africa say, most of the time when it comes to African politics, the forest is always the same. Sorry, the forest is always different, but the monkeys are still the same and will never change. And when you see you're used to a particular way of doing work, how much training will you get to change? Why don't you just bring someone with a different mindset? Change fails to happen in Africa because there is no mentoring, there is no continuity. What happens is that you see those who are best in what they do, especially in leadership, they just disappear in some system which is always corrupt and all that. They accept that as not the norm and they never change. We have powerful minds who have contributed globally, but take them back to African setting. And the words they begin to talk about, you're like, have you ever even gone to school? And what is it that happens in these places, in these systems, whereby you find change can't happen? The other thing is impunity. When you give the people like the SARS power, like we saw 10 people were killed, of course, human rights activists challenge that. And then the National Human Rights Commission of Nigeria is also talking about, as a gesture of goodwill, releasing all those protesters who were arrested. So you want to ask yourself, how far can this go? I don't think Nigerians want a continuity of SARS. And also, I have a problem with that name. Before coronavirus came, we were talking about SARS. Why did they choose that name? It's not a good. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys.
Julius,
But then, but
I'm
then
sorry.
I
I'm
was having
sorry,
a
guys. But
conversation. No, that's fine, that's fine. I was having a conversation with our friend Idris the other day about this particular issue, and the process of recruitment came up. And I will use Ghana as an example. And I think this was back in 2000 and either 2012 or 2016, where a member of one particular party, there was a tape which was leaked where he was saying to the party's foot soldiers that if we're able to come into power, the job for you guys is push you into, security, the police force, and and into the army. So then one have to also question, when it comes to recruitment. And secondly, guys, I was also talking about the psychological impact on the police. Because let's face it, they were formed to deal with these armed robbers. And sometimes these armed robbers have better ammunition than the police. Already, to be a policeman is not an easy job. And you could come up against an armed robber, whatever. There could be shootouts, and the psychological effect that will have on the policemen, to the point where any situations that may arise where you need to be calm and control the situation, you end up being trigger happy. And I think sometimes we don't put enough emphasis on what the police go through, and if there are ways in which they can be helped on that side as well.
I think the thing is, when you recruit police officers, you and in terms of the economy of the country, you want to ask yourself, how many layers of this service should there be? Because instead of having so many layers doing the same thing, okay, the ultimate work of SWAT or SARS is to prevent crime. Crime comes in different ways, right? A typical police officer has been trained to fight crime. So instead of having all these layers and layers of service, same service, why not have just one service? Number one, remunerate these officers. Number two, train them and retrain them to be good at what they do. And then you find out that you will never have to have so many layers doing the same. Let me tell you something. Conflict happens. We saw it, yeah, in Kenya during the Westgate attack. Because of having different layers doing different things, then the initial response is by police. Then the second layer will come and they begin to be like, we are better than you, get away. Instead of having a united, coordinated, one force, you find even layers fighting each other. You may have typical, we are talking about, SARS in Nigeria or SWAT. Imagine crime happened and you see SWAT response. But your typical police officer will be also on the ground. And there's always that power struggle. Like, is SARS or SWAT, is it better than typical Nigerian police officer? And therefore, that conflict is kind of covered. It's not obvious in some situations, but it's always there. Talk about US. I do see when the federal police does respond. And I see how they behave when they see CIA or FBI. And also these guys also, they're like coming like in a way that they intimidate them. They're like, we are a bit senior than yourselves. And we have to think as African, what is good for our economy, Western affluent nations can afford the luxury of even having 20 layers of the service, same service. But Africa, are we that rich? Do we have enough resources to entertain layers and layers of the same service? It's just a question to ponder.
And Priscilla, if we can, I just want you to touch on earlier when I did ask if they've been effective. Right now, this protest, obviously, we've had the Black Lives Matter, and this, in a way, is similar because it's against police brutality. So, what is next now?
Well, I think what is really interesting about this protest is that the government sort of sat back initially and thought, "Oh, don't worry, they'll be run out of steam very soon and they'll go home." Because usually when protest happens in Nigeria, it tends to be organized by those who obviously they want something. And it tends to be the money bags that will organize these protests so that's, to make the government of the day look bad. But what has happened here is people have risen up. And I mean, it's amazing how united they are. So it has been effective, if not for anything, it's been effective in drumming into the Nigerian youth that we need to be one and we need to step out and it is up to us. So that's number one that I think that they've achieved. And what has been so beautiful to see is that so they've raised money. As at the last time I checked, it was something like 60 million naira. They've raised money amongst themselves. And what are they using this money for? For anybody that gets arrested, there's a team of lawyers that are, going to bail them in court. So they're paying those lawyers. If you get injured, you need to get to a hospital. These monies are there to help you. I even saw the other day somebody put on Twitter, if your car is broken down or something, there's a garage where you can bring your car to. And then there was a threat that they're gonna switch off the internet. So they've quickly grouped themselves and said, hey, if they're gonna switch off the internet, you can use the VPN. This is where how you can go. But they've put the full instructions of what you need to do to use your phone so that we can stay in communication. People start swapping numbers, and on a daily basis, you've got people that are paying for food, so they're also utilizing this money to buy food, and it's so they're so united that even when you've got those who any negative elements, they're not tolerating it. There was a group apparently that was paid to go and disrupt the protest. Those groups spoke about the fact that they lost one person. So they were literally beaten, arrested, handed over to the police, and and they're not tolerating, they're not, and they're also not allowing anybody to come and hijack their protest. So if you're coming there, obviously we have activists in the country, and all those activists that would come along with their usual, I think the most recent one, Revolution Now, for instance, they're like, no, 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 please, this is not about revolution now. We're here to end it. Please, can you just, no, 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 not here.
Yeah.
And you've got the political jobbers as well. And they're just saying to them, don't come. Please, this is not about this today. We're here to end SARS. So I think there is that unity, that bond, and that their ability to work together like that. It's never been seen before in the country. And like I mentioned earlier, it's not just happening in Nigeria. They're protesting. We saw the protest here in the UK. They're going to go out again. We saw the protest. The US, the various states are having one protest or another. Across over in Europe, they're protesting in front of all the Nigerian embassies. So people are coming out. They're not kidding about this.
Yes, there's one happening here on Saturday in London.
Yeah, on the 17th.
Yes, the
There's
17th.
another one as well.
Yeah.
So, so it's not a one-hit wonder. So I think that ultimately we're going to get to the goal. Me personally, I will demand that the government takes away those rifles from those officers, because I think that they fire those rifles with, it doesn't take much provocation. Somebody will just be firing.
Yeah, and I want to come in here, and this will be, final points from the both of you, because this is what the army said about the whole situation. So army spokesman Sager Musa said on his Facebook post. Okay, so this is the Nigerian army. He says the Nigerian army hereby warns all subversive elements and troublemakers to desist from such acts, as it remains highly committed to defend the country and her democracy at all cost. He went on to offer to support the civil authority in whatever capacity to maintain law and order and deal with any situation decisively. And from somebody watching what's happening, Priscilla, when you hear messages like this, what does this mean to you?
The army is supposed to be protecting the people. The army is not supposed, you can't be saying you're loyal to the state, but you're not there to protect the people. It doesn't make sense. So, when I read something to the effect that the chief of army staff said he was loyal to the president, I just thought, I I don't know, what he's going to get the shock of his life if he decides to step out there. I have seen these guys. I've seen the video of them being waterboarded and they're on their knees, refusing to move. I have seen, they are largely peaceful. They have been peaceful. The only time that we're seeing issues and problems is because of the elements that are being paid to go and cause the problems. So if people have a right to protest, sovereignty belongs to the people after all. It doesn't belong to the man that was elected. The man who is elected into office is there to work for the interest of the people and for the people. So, the gentleman who, so the army suggesting that they're going to come out, are you threatening the people? Is that what they're trying to say? Because if the people have been largely peaceful, you cannot now be advocating anything other than further protection. If you do that, you're suggesting that you're threatening them and you want to come and cause more violence. And that's not needed. And I think that they should go and if they are not sure of what to do, take advice from others, but don't just get out there because it will make the situation worse. We've seen women coming out. We've seen, we saw women coming out in numbers to say our children needs to be protected. At some point, you're going to have the whole nation on the streets. And, the politicians, as usual, are comfortable. It's good to see that they're having meetings and the governors are having meetings within their states now and saying we're going to put a fund together that we're going to compensate those who have been killed by SARS officers in their various states and so on. It's not enough. They need to do more. The lives of Nigerians are precious, and that must be respected and protected. You can't just threaten them because they gave you a weapon and a position. It's not.
Let's hear Julius' take on that particular statement, Julius.
There should always be separation between the police and also the military. Rule number one: the military exists to protect a country from external attack mainly. Yeah. So, but you look into when there's immense chaos inside the country, which is far beyond the police, then you see, is it about time we gave them a backup, which is allowed. But when you look into just mere protest, you understand that Nigerian police haven't raised any alarm to say, oh, this is overwhelming, we need a hand. They haven't. And you see the police chief, Mr. Adam, also having the guts to release protesters, which I think is a brilliant thing to do. And also embracing the idea that in an African setting, protesters can protest about an issue peacefully, and there's no chaos, there's no tear gassing, and it all ends well. And the authorities that be acknowledge that there's an issue to be sorted. That's very important. And therefore, whenever you saw military having the appetite to intervene quickly, things never turn out the way they should be. We saw the corruption in Mali over the years to the level that protests were talking about, let the president resign. But what happened when the army intervened? There was a coup. So let the police do their work, whether you call them SARS, assault, or SWOT analysis, whatever. Let them do their job. And if they are overwhelmed, yes, military can just intervene, but to bring order, but not to be involved in politics. Africa, we don't want military leadership. We want civilian leadership because that is the essence of democracy.
Okay. This is a message from Dennis Otingo Oyangu. Priscilla had her pause on the issue. SWOT and SARS are just symptoms of systemic governance failure. Niger is ripe for revolution. Where is Sowore and change movement leaders? And
They're there.
again,
They're there. The people
there.
come and hijack our program.
Well, Priscilla and Julius, thank you guys very much for coming on the Logic Box. It's been great as always having you guys on the show.
Always
It was
a
great to
pleasure.
catch up.
Thank
It
you
was.
guys.
It was good to see you,
Yes.
Julius.
Yes.
Yeah, nice to catch up, guys. Have a nice one.
You too. You too. Thank you guys. All being well. At some point we'll be able to meet, when things calm down a little bit more. But thank you very much, Priscilla, and also Julius. Thank you guys very much. And to you for staying tuned and watching. Guys, make sure you do share. Go onto our YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us across all social media platforms. Okay? Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm done for another day. My name is Jones. Thank you for watching. Coronavirus is still very much out there. So whatever it is you do, make sure you protect yourself, protect your family, protect your friends, protect everyone. Protect me to protect you.